2019 has begun with quite a bang. The whole world is wiling as we brace ourselves to endure what our president has dubbed to be the year of accountability. Things are happening. Our leaders seem to be more concerned with maintaining the status quo rather than condemning the brutality being meted out on the citizens of the motherland. Affirmative repositioning activist Dimbulukeni Nauyoma was arrested for, amongst other crimes, obstructing officers in the execution of their duties after he intervened when city police officials demolished the shack of a woman who refused to exchange sex for rent and was consequently evicted by her landlord.
On that particular Friday, a woman's house was destroyed. It's not just any ordinary woman. This is an orphan with 2 kids, a child of the liberation struggle that we learned now after the aftermath, but we had not access to that information. That information that we had on Friday was that she's an orphan and that she has 2 kids. And the reason why her house was destroyed by the city of Windhoek, particularly the city police, is that she refused to have sexual intercourse with the perceived community leader that had granted her permission to put up her house next to his house. Now, ordinarily, we have been battling with the issues of universities and sex for mark, and how our young sisters they are overpowered by professors and lecturers in order for them to pass and graduate. So this has touched many of us to say that, can it be right, 28 years, now going to be 29 years after independence, that there is things such as sex for plots? So does it mean that our young sisters can now go and sleep with the property manager at the city of Windhoek for her to be number 1 on the list when the city services land? So that culture ordinarily is what we wanted to deal with and say it cannot be right that somebody's house must be removed on the basis of this. And we have learned now that the man, in fact, is not even a community leader. It's an ordinary person of the community, but took advantage of the poverty of this unemployed mother, an orphan, took advantage of her physically and psychologically, because remember that there is a dire need of land in this country, and it's a crisis. So in the midst of these things, the police then showed up, and we had fruitful engagement with the first officers that arrived, because the officer was there the day before. And remember, this was on Thursday. They came actually on Thursday, and they left and they came back in the morning when she was sleeping. Now, we had engaged with this officer and we had reached a very fruitful agreement to say that perhaps that we need to engage the real community leaders. Because remember, when you come even to an area such as this one, you speak to community leaders and then they give you an opportunity to set up your housing structure, because ordinarily things must be done in that way. Now, after those engagement, the officers' superiors came, and of course, you see, when you challenge, and remember what I was alluding to earlier, to say that when you see men in the uniform, you become submissive. Now, activism tells us that superior logic must take center stage and not emotions. And of course, when we engaged, we presented superior logic, and the Chief Justice, Deputy Chief Justice and Judge President Petros Damaseb last year declared in the Supreme Court that in order for you to evict a particular person at a particular place, you cannot just come and say, because I'm Nauyoma Dimbulukeni, Chief of Police or Chief of City Police, demand of you to move right instantly this moment. Because number 1, I must be able to provide an alternative accommodation where you are going, give you an eviction order, a paper that says you are moving on the basis of this and this and this and this. Now, none of those things upon our inquiry, were presented.
He described his ordeal in police custody.
I was told that, we need to go. And I asked, where are we going? He says, no, I'm arresting you. Of course, I then asked, you are arresting me on what basis? The police failed to tell me at that particular point in time as I was being handcuffed, why I'm being handcuffed, and what crime I have committed, and what offense I have committed. And of course, I was handcuffed, thrown at the back of the city police van, and at that particular point in time, I just cooperated with the law. I mean, I couldn't even understand why I'm being arrested because my charges have not been read to me, I don't know if this is an act that happens on a regular basis. I can imagine if they are doing that to me, what happens to a poor somebody who has no understanding of the law? Those individuals who have no understanding of the law, what happens to them? So somebody just comes, they pick you up and they throw you at the back of the van, and they start driving recklessly as if they are boxes behind. And that is how I ended up in this condition. The holding cells are in a terrible state. They are in a... you see, this is the level of a mattress that one is supposed to sleep on. As thin as a blanket size. And they are not properly taken care of. The conditions, there are cockroaches up and down, mosquitoes everywhere. Some as big as this, and they are roaming freely. I stayed in my cell for about between 3 to 4 hours or 5 hours before the cordon was given. And remember, we stayed there with my lawyer for about 4 hours after my arrest. No case is opened. They refused to give me medical treatment. I was asking myself, we see these things happening in Zimbabwe, we see these things happening all over SADC, and we're thinking whether Namibia is in the same shoes, because when you hear these stories, you actually question whether it's true. At times we think people are lying, but after having a personal experience, I can tell you that you become less human when you are thrown at the back of a van.
With this being an election year, Nauyoma fears that the police are using their power to intimidate citizens, but the affirmative repositioning movement will not be deterred.
The leadership must know that we will never be deterred by all these tricks. As activists, we are psychologically prepared. We are physically prepared for anything that they throw at us. If they can come again, throw me in the cells. It does not matter. But they must know that they must be prepared to throw 1,000 of us in those cells. In fact, what we had said before, and remember in 2014 and 2015, before the 31st July, we were saying that prisons will become our homes. We are not afraid to go to prison. We are not afraid to challenge the law in its current form and leadership in their current form. So they must be prepared that, of course, if they think these are political rhetorics, as we are hearing, political propaganda, some are saying that it's because it's election year, all these things. It does not matter. The land question, we have been challenging the land question for the past 4 years. This is the 5th year now. And nothing is happening. And they must be prepared to say that if you are servicing Koreahab Extension 4 for 3 years, are you really serious about land delivery? It took Oshakati less than 7 to 8 months to deliver 2,500 plots. It's taking the city of Windhoek more than 3 years to deliver on 355 plots.